This is WIMBA Classroom covering lessons 5, 6, and 7 in MUSI 1301, Music Reading. Lesson 5. Lesson 5 continues with rhythm and expanding on the knowledge that you already have about counting certain rhythms. And in Lesson 5, there's not too much new, but a little bit. In Lesson 5, you will be asked to count using half notes, dotted half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes. And the eighth notes are something that is a little bit different. Also in Lesson 5, you're asked to start to get some knowledge about sight singing. There are two systems that are mainly used for sight singing. That means that you are looking at pitches and are trying to figure out what they sound like and produce them without actually playing them on an instrument, but you are actually trying to sing them as you see them. And it's quite complicated, but we're going to just kind of touch on this subject just a little bit, not very much. Anyway, so Lesson 5, we're going to start out with the rhythm part of that. And in order to count the rhythms in this class, I've asked you to use the Eastman system of counting. And there is a document that is linked in your classroom shell or in your DL on the DL site for this document. The Eastman system of counting is called Everything You Need to Know About the Eastman Counting System. And we're not going to be using all the rules for it, but if you follow these, it's usually pretty simple to figure out these rhythms. So what is going on with assignment 5.1? You should already have your knowledge of what notes look like, the stems, the ball of the note, the equivalence, and all of that, which we covered in previous lesson. So in this assignment, really all you're doing is trying to count the rhythms. And assignment 5.1 asks you mainly half notes and quarter notes and dotted half notes. And this is an example of what you might be asked to count in assignment 5.1. And I'm just going to kind of go over this with you at this point. Looking at everything you need to see before you can count, you want to look at the meter signature, which is 3/4 time in this particular example. So that means the top note, 3 beats in a measure, the top number, 3 beats in a measure, and the bottom number, a quarter note, gets 1 beat. That's what the 4 means. You should already have knowledge of what the meter signature is and what it means. So in this particular example, you will see that every measure should have 3 beats in it. And if you saw this on your paper on assignment 5.1, there won't be any counting in that. That's what you're going to do. But I'm going to go over the counting on this example with you right now. So if you look at this in 3/4 time, you see the first note is a quarter note. And that note begins on beat 1. It couldn't begin on anything else because this is the very beginning of the piece of music. It's right after the meter signature. That note occurs right after the meter signature. If we were looking at different specific pitches, then there might be a key signature after that with sharps or flats. But then the first note would occur. So there's a quarter note. A quarter note is one sound on 1 beat. So that note begins on beat number 1. So if you remember back in the Eastman system, a note that begins on the beat is called by the number of the beat. So we're looking here. That note is on beat 1, so it's called 1, and that is the counting of it. Looking at the next note, it is a half note. A half note is one sound that lasts for 2 beats, and I am basing this all on a quarter note getting 1 beat. So the half note is getting 2 beats, or it's lasting for 2 beats. It actually is going to begin on what beat? Well, if the quarter note began on beat 1 and a quarter note lasts for 1 beat, takes up 1 beat, then the half note must start on beat 2. The half note lasts for 2 beats. The half note, again, is one sound that lasts for 2 beats. So the half note begins on beat 2. You are going to indicate that it lasts for 2 beats by putting the dash there. So it begins on beat 2. The dash means that it sounds for another beat, which would be through beat number 3. And there are 3 beats in every one of these measures. Looking at the next measure, the half note begins on beat 1. A half note sounds for 2 beats. So it begins on beat 1. The dash indicates it lasts through beat 2. And then the next note, which is the quarter note in this case, must occur on beat number 3. So here is beat 1, a continuing sound of that note through beat 2, and then the quarter note occurring on beat 3. Next measure, a dotted half note. A dotted half note is a 3-beat note in 3/4 time when a quarter note gets 1 beat, because a half note gets 2 beats. The dot means you add half of that note's value back to it. So half of 2 is 1, so 2 plus 1 is 3. So that note lasts for 3 beats. It occurs, or the first initial attack of the sound begins on beat number 1. It lasts for 3 beats. So there are the 3 beats indicated by the dashes. The continuing sound is always indicated by the dashes in this case. And then the last measure, quarter note, occurs on beat 1. One sound on 1 beat, so this is pretty simple. Quarter note on beat 2, quarter note on beat 3. Excuse me. Okay, so after this is all said and done, how am I going to process or understand what this rhythm actually sounds like? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is try to keep a steady beat. And I'm going to do that by tapping my foot, my heel on the floor, and tapping the front part of the toe part of my foot. And it's going to be going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Every time that the foot is down, that is the main part of the beat. When the foot comes up, that is the halfway point of the beat, which we're going to be using later. But if I get that tapping going, and I'm thinking about a steady beat, keeping a steady beat, it's going to sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, and my foot is going down, up, down, up, down, up. 1, 2, 3, 1. Ready, count. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3. If you'll notice that I am trying to make those half notes, dotted half notes, continue through the sound, continue through those beats, so I'm actually kind of pulsing where the beat occurs, but I am trying to keep the sound going. Again, that rhythm that we just counted is 1, ready, count. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. And in assignment 5.1, there aren't any that are any more complicated than that. That's pretty simple. In assignment 5.2, you will need to know how to count eighth notes. Going back to the Eastman system of counting, rule number 2, a note that begins halfway between two beats is called tay, pronounced T-A-Y, tay, and it's actually spelled when you write it out, T-E, it's T-E for tay. Okay, so half notes that we just did get 2 beats. Quarter notes get 1 beat if the meter signature has a 4 on the bottom. And an eighth note, remember this was something that I said was confusing before, an eighth note does not get an eighth of a beat. An eighth note gets 1/2 of 1 beat. Therefore, it takes 2 eighth notes to complete 1 beat. 2 eighth notes here. A half and a half. Now, you have to think of it as 2 equal sounds on 1 beat. They can't be heavier on one side. In other words, this one over here can't last longer than this. They have to be exactly a half a beat long. So when I'm counting those, and I'm trying to set my pulse or my speed or my tempo, and my foot is going down, up, down, up, down, up. That kind of gives me that equalization of those 2 eighth notes. As the foot goes down, that's 1, and as it comes up on the half of a beat, that is the portion where it is A. So if my foot is going down, up, down, up, down, up, it's 1 tay, 2 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, and those are what those eighth notes sound like. As far as we're going to count it in just a moment, but as far as this rhythm that is here, 2/4 time, 2 beats in a measure, a quarter note gets 1 beat. There's the first note, which is a quarter note. 1 sound on 1 beat, and that note begins on beat number 1, so we call it 1. It takes up that beat. So the next note has to begin on beat number 2, and in this case it's an eighth note. Now, it's an eighth note, and then there's another eighth note, and that second eighth note is this rule. A note that begins halfway between 2 beats is called tay. The eighth note is a half. It occurs on the second half of the second beat. So it is called tay when we count. Looking at the next measure, the eighth note begins on beat 1. The second eighth note occurs halfway between beat number 1 and beat number 2. Therefore, it is called tay when we're counting. So those 2 halves, those 2 eighth notes, take up the first beat. Therefore, the next beat, the quarter note, occurs on beat number 2. And the quarter note lasts for 1 complete beat, so you don't have to do anything else to it. Next measure. Eighth note begins on 1. There's the second eighth note halfway in between beat number 1 and 2, so we call it tay. Here's another eighth note that begins now on beat number 2. And here's the eighth note that's between that beat number 2 and the next beat number 1. We're calling it tay. So that measures 1 tay, 2 tay. Next measure, 1 eighth note occurring on 1. There's the note that is halfway between beat number 1, number 2, and beat number 1 and 2, and it's called tay. And then we're ending this example with a quarter note, which takes up 1 complete beat. So we're calling it occurs on beat number 1, on beat number 2, and we're calling it 2. We don't have to do anything else to it. Okay, so if we're trying to count this in rhythm to hear exactly what that rhythm is going to sound like, we're going to get our foot tapping down, up, down, up, down, up. 1, ready, count. 1, two, tay, one, tay, two. One, tay, two, tay, one, tay, two. The whole time I'm doing that, I'm keeping that steady beat, and my foot tapping is actually helping me do that. So it shows me when I'm tapping my foot like that, it shows me where the tay goes. It's dividing that beat into two equal parts, dividing one beat into two equal parts. Again, one, my foot is going down, up, one, two, ready, count. One, two, tay, one, tay, two. One, tay, two, tay, one, tay, two. And in assignment 5.2, there are various and sundry combinations of quarter notes, half notes, and eighth notes that you will need to put the counting into. The other part of Lesson 5 is giving you a taste of sight singing. And this is a way to look at music and put the note with a certain sound. And the way it's done most of the time is through two different systems, either the solfege system of sight singing or the number system of sight singing. And in these two systems, a scale, in our case, we are just thinking about major scales, the major sound of the major scale. Each degree of the major scale is assigned a syllable in solfege. You have probably heard those before. If you know the song, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and do. Now that doesn't mean much if you're just saying those pitches. But if you know what that major scale sounds like, what a major scale sounds like, and what those pitches sound like in that major scale, then that's going to allow you to start to learn how to sight sing. The other system is just assigning a number to every degree or every pitch in a major scale. Now, we have not done scales yet, which is coming up here, but a scale has 7 different pitches, just like this scale right here. Everything that we're doing in assignment 5.3 is based on a C major scale. And a C major scale has no sharps or flats in the key signature. So we are not going to worry about any sharps or any flats. And we're going to talk about keys and key signatures a little bit later on in lessons 6 and 7. But everything we're doing in 5.3 is in C major, which has no sharps and flats. Now, look at the C major scale. Any scale is named by the first degree of that scale. So the first degree of a C major scale is C. The second degree is D. Third degree of the scale is E. Fourth is F. The fifth degree of the scale is G. The sixth degree of the C major scale is A. The seventh degree of the scale is B. And then that gives the last note, which ends the scale, actually repeats the first note of the scale. So C here and C here, the same note. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And actually it tops it off or it ends it. In reality, there are only 7 different pitches in a major scale or a minor scale. If you look down here, before I go through the solfege, I'm just going to go through the numbers. Here, they're numbered. The 1, right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the next C, or the higher C, which is an octave above the one we started out on, this C, that's right here, is actually an octave above this one. We talked about octaves before. It's 8 notes. So it is the 8th note, and when you get into that 8th note, it repeats. And that note can be called either 8 or it can be called 1 because it is the repeat. If you're going upward and you've already used the low C, usually you would call that higher one an octave above 8, but you don't have to. You could call it 1. If it's a C and a C, it has to have the same, either 1 and 1, or the 8 is exactly the same as 1. Looking at the solfege, the first degree, do, re, is the second degree, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now, the whole purpose of sight singing is to assign different pitches. This is not a rhythm. These are pitches. They're certain different sounds. And I'm going to sing what the major scale sounds like using those pitches for you. I'm going to just use an arbitrary place where I'm going to start with a C. If you have perfect pitch, you'll know that's not a C, but that's where I'm going to start. It doesn't really matter if I call that C right now, which we could get complicated about this. But if I say the names of the notes and just sing them, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Those are the 7 different pitches with the 8th repeated an octave higher of the C major scale. If I assign those pitches to the solfege system, they are going to be do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If I assign them to numbers, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. So there are 2 different ways to do it. When you do assignment 5.3, I've already had some people turn this in and they are just naming notes. It is not about naming notes, because what we are going to do eventually, what you would do with this, is you would assign a different key signature, a different set of notes to those same do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That allows you to have the I can't think of the word I'm trying to the basis of what the pitches always sound like, no matter what pitch you're starting on. And I'm just going to kind of show you that right now. I've been saying that this is C, D. Okay, what if I pick a different pitch and I want to sing a major scale like this note? So it would be do, re, mi, sol, la, ti, do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a completely different set of notes, but I'm still using the syllables of the solfege or the numbers system to indicate that major scale. Okay, so what happens, what you're asked to do in this exercise 5.3, you are asked to transfer the notes to either the solfege system or the number system of sight singing. I've already told you that this is in C major, so you know there are no sharps and flats, and you're using the C major scale. So you are using these pitches, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and each one of those is assigned the syllable or the number. So what will happen is whatever scale you're using, I would write it out. In this case, we're just using C major, so you write it out just like I did here in this example. Then it's very simple to transfer it to whatever notes you want to. So here's an example right here on this line. There's a C, there's an F, there's a G, E, C, E, B, and C. Now, it does not ask you to name the notes. It asks you on one of them to put solfege and one of them to put numbers. So what you have to do is to transfer those notes to the solfege system. So if I'm looking at C here, what is C if I'm doing solfege? It is do. What is the next note? F. in the key of C in solfege, it is fa. The G is so. The E is mi. Back to C, which is do. E, which is mi. Here's me again. B, which is T. And then back to do. It's pretty simple to transfer any pitch that you want. Now, there are ways. We're not doing sharps and flats in this. We're just using the regular major scale without any accidentals or anything in it. Listen to what this is going to sound like if I sing a C, C, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, do. We're starting right here, do. And then we're going to fa, so, mi, do, mi, ti, do. And I did that because I have those pitches in my brain of that major scale. You could transfer this to any key once you know what keys are. I'm just going to show you something here. You don't have to do it in a different key right now, but here is the notes of the D major scale, and I have an example here of a D example in the key of D. The D major scale, or the key of D, has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. The notes of the D major scale are D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So if I were in a different key, in the key of D major, I'm looking for D, and D is the first degree of the scale, so this note D would be do. Here's an A. In the key of D major, A is the fifth degree of the scale, which is sol. F sharp is the third degree of the scale, mi. D is do, the first degree of the scale. G is the fourth degree of the scale, fa. B is the sixth degree of the scale, which is la. C sharp is the seventh degree of the D major scale, which is T, and back to the high D, but it's still do. So I don't know if you follow that, but I'm in a different key, but I still assigned the syllables of solfege to that particular key. I'm just going to go back here to the C major. If I'm trying to do this with numbers, C is 1. 1, 4, 5, 3, 1, 3, 7, 1. If I'm singing it, and this is C, or 1, 1, 4, 5, 3, 1, 3, 7, 1. So I just did that with numbers. I could do that also. I could do it with the D major scale. I could change it to numbers. But that's what you're doing in this exercise. You're taking the C major scale. You are changing it into the pitches of solfege or into the number system of sight singing. Lesson 6 has to do with scales. Scales are not that complicated. They're very mathematical, and they have formulas. If you will use the formula for that particular scale, whatever you're trying to do, then you will not have a problem. Now, I will say you do have to know half steps and whole steps. You must know that. And you go back to the piano keyboard, and you must know that from this note to this note is a half step. From this note to this note is a whole step. From this note to this note is a half step. I suggest that as you're trying to learn scales and how to build scales and understand them, that you use the keyboard or you use the cutout there that came with your book, and you have that visual to help you with understanding. We just talked about a C major scale when we were doing the sight singing exercise. And a scale, a major scale, is 7 different pitches with the 8th pitch repeating the first. A major scale's formula is no matter what note you begin on, if you start with that note and you go to the second note of the scale and use a whole step, you go to the third note with a whole step, the fourth note a half step, the fifth note a whole step, sixth whole step, seventh whole step, and then from the seventh back to the 1 or the 8th is a half step. So the formula for a major scale is whole, half, whole, half, meaning whole steps and half steps. If I start on any note, does not matter what note it is, I can build a major scale by knowing that formula. Now I'm going to show you using C major just why C major is C major, and it doesn't have any sharps and flats. But here's a C right here. And if I start on a C and here's the beginning note, C. The formula is whole, half, whole, half. So I start on the C. From the C to the next note, using a whole step, is to that note, which is D. So I'm going whole, half, whole, half. The next that I need is a whole. Actually, let me do this. Let me put the formula down here so that we can see. And that will make it a little bit easier maybe. Okay. So let me just kind of start over here, but from the first note, which we're going to say is C, going a whole step to this note, another whole step to this note. Now we need a half step in the formula. A whole step to this note, a whole step to this note, a whole step to this note, and now we need another half step. Now, I used the correct formula. I used the correct half steps and whole steps. So that those notes that I did, or I just put the arrows on, are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. And that is why the key of C major has no sharps or flats in it. That's why, because I used that formula. Now, it's more complicated when you starting on different notes, but it's still not very complicated. Let me put that formula back down here, and then I can use that. Let's see. Whole, whoops, half, whole, half. Okay, there's the formula. Let's say, for example, that I'm going to I want to build a major scale on the first beginning note of F. F is a good one right here. Here's an F. All right, so I use that formula, whole, half, whole, half. From F to G is a whole step. From G to A is a whole step. From A to B flat is a half step. Now, I can't call that A sharp because in the scale you have to use 7 different names of pitches. So I started off over here with F, G, A. That must be called B flat. Now, and harmonics come into play here, but I have to call it B flat, not F sharp. Okay, so I went whole, half. Now I have to go a whole step from the B flat here to C, another whole step to D, another whole step to E, and then ending up with a half step, and it comes back to repeat to F. If for some reason I don't end up on F, then I know that's incorrect because the scale, the first degree and the eighth degree of that scale are going to be the same, F and F. Okay, so I use the formula, and my pitches are these. Let me just use a different one here just to kind of show you. It would be F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and F. That's an F major scale. Again, did it matter where I started as long as I used that formula? No, it does not matter. Let me start on a different note and do whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Let's start on, how about this note, G. I want to change this around, though. I don't like to use the arrow pointed that way. Okay, so we're starting on G. G, whole step, the next interval there should be a whole step, would be to this note A, whole step to B, half step to C, whole step to D, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp. Why do I call that F sharp? This was E, so I have to name this note, which was the whole step there, as an F sharp, and then ending up the half step to G. So that scale, G major scale, remember the scale takes on the name of the first degree, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And if I sang that in solfege, it is, or I sang it as a major scale, G, A, B, C, D, F sharp, G, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So all of those things kind of intertwine in there. Okay, so that's the formula for a major scale. What you're going to have to do is to build major scales. And like again, I suggest using that cutout of the keyboard or using a keyboard. And as you are figuring out those notes, I would write them down. As long as you do the correct whole steps and half steps, you're going to end up with a major scale. Now, all of this is going to relate to key signatures later. But right now, we're just building them without any key signatures, and so that you can understand the whole steps and half steps. If I put a key signature with this particular scale that I just did, which is a G major scale, and I see right here there is one sharp in it and it's an F sharp, that's actually going to be what is in the key signature. The key signature tells me what every F in the whole piece of music is going to have to be an F sharp for it to be in the key of G major. But right now, we're just building the scales. There's a different formula if you are trying to build a minor scale. And that formula is starting note, go a whole step, half step, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Whole step, half, whole, half, whole. I'm going to show you that. A minor scale has three different types of forms, actually. We would call it a form. Three forms of a minor scale. The natural minor scale uses the key signature or the formula for the minor scale without any changes. The harmonic minor scale raises the seventh degree of the scale a half step. So whatever that seventh degree of the scale is, you're going to raise it a half step. The melodic minor form raises the sixth and seventh degree half step going upward and returns to normal as you go back downward in the scale. And we are not going to be using melodic minor in any of these exercises. Okay, So let's take a look at the formula for the minor scale. I've got them already written out here, the letter names of what we need, but I want to show you the intervals or the whole and half steps needed here. For an A minor scale, we're going to start on A. So that's the first note. Then we need a whole step, so that goes to B. Then we need a half step going to C, a whole step going to D, a whole step going to E, a half step going to F, a whole step going to G, and a whole step going to A. Therefore, the notes of the A pure, it's called a pure or a natural minor. The notes of that A minor scale, pure scale or natural minor scale, are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and those have no sharps or flats. No sharps or flats in that one. I chose that one particularly because of that. But now I'm going to show you one that will have sharps, flats in it. Actually, this one's going to have flats in it. So I'm going to start the scale. I want to build an F minor scale. Begins on F, then goes a whole step. That goes to G. Then I need a half step. Can I name this note right here as G sharp? No. It has to have 7 different letter names for the scale. So I must name it enharmonically as A flat. The scale must go F, G, A flat. Okay, so that's the whole step. I need another whole step. So from A flat, I have to go half and then here. To the B flat is the whole step. I need another whole step after that. And from B flat to C is the whole step. Then I need a half step to D flat. Can I name it C sharp? No, it must go from C to B flat. Then I need a whole step, goes to E flat, and then another whole step which goes to F. Whole, half, whole, half, whole, whole. Those notes for that F minor, natural minor scale are F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, and E flat. If I were to want to use the harmonic or figure out if it were the harmonic minor, I would look at that scale and I would see, for example, here's in the A minor scale, G is the 7th degree of that scale. If I raise that note a half step up to G sharp, and then the notes of that scale would become A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A, I would know that that is the harmonic minor form of the A minor scale. If I were to do that on the F minor scale, the 7th degree of the F minor scale is E flat. I would need to raise that up a half step to an E. So now for harmonic minor, it would be F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E, and then F. So those are the changes there. Now, in your book, use your book to its advantage as you're doing these scales. All the major scales, all the minor scales are listed in the book, starting on page 87. All the major scales with sharps, they're done in treble clef and bass clef. All the major scales with flats on page 88 in treble clef and bass clef. And then on page 91, the minor scales with sharps in them, and 92, the minor scales with flats in them. Also, when you start to get to the keys, you will use these pages because each one of these scales has the key signature for that scale at the beginning of it, telling you which notes are going to be sharp notes and which notes are going to be flat notes. So use those pages to your advantage. Trying to think if I left anything out about those scales. When you get to the assignment, the actual assignment itself, uh, assignment 6.1 and 6.2 is done on eMusic theory. And the directions for 6.1, only major, well, actually 6.1 and 2, only major scales, natural minor scales, and harmonic minor scales will be used. So you only have to worry about the major, the natural minor, and then the raised seventh and the harmonic minor scale. Remember that each scale must have 7 different names of notes. For example, you could not have an F in a scale and then an F sharp. You would have to say F, then G flat, because you have to have those 7 different names of the notes. Your directions for 6.1, at the bottom of the screen, click on the type of the note that we'd like to put in the scale. Click on that note and insert it onto the staff. When you see the note that you're beginning the scale on, you might want to write it down, try to figure out the rest of the scale on staff paper before you try to insert it on the computer program on eMusic Theory. I'm advocating that so you don't have to start over 100 times. So if you see a starting note of, I believe I put this on here. Let's see. Yes, this is what the assignment's going to look like on eMusic Theory. If it's it'll say major scale or whatever, and there's a C, which is the beginning note. I would try to figure out the names of the notes for the C major scale using the formula, using the keyboard, write them down before I started trying to insert it. So you would have the beginning note in the assignment, which this is C, and it's going to say C major, whatever note you need. So the next note I need for C major scale would just be a regular note. It wouldn't be a sharped note or a flatted note or a double flat note or a double sharp note. So when I start out with C and then I know the next note doesn't have any sharps or flats, I click on that and then I bring it up here and have to click wherever it goes on the line or the space. So that's what's going on in that assignment 6.1. 6.2, I think it's exactly the opposite. It asks you to build minor scales on it, so it's the same type of thing. You use the formula for the minor scale, and then you insert the notes that it asks you to do, whether it's a minor or a harmonic minor, or pure or natural minor. So that's what you're doing on 6.1 and 6.2 in music theory. Now, some people have trouble with it because they start just trying to randomly kind of think while they're going and not use anything visually like the keyboard. I would definitely advocate using the keyboard, and I think that will help you a lot. Okay. Now, we talked about building a major scale and a minor scale. By the way, if you're going through the book there, if you're looking at your assignments, you know that there's certain pages that you're supposed to be reading. And after major scales and minor scales, there are other types of scales talked about in the book. There is a whole tone scale, and a whole tone scale is built all on whole steps. various other things. So they're not just major and minor scales, but those are the ones that we are going to be using in this class. Okay, so when I say a C major scale, it has a corresponding key or tonal center, and that is C major. Learning about keys and modes is lesson number 7. This visual shows you all the different key or tonal centers available to you. If you look, we're starting here with C major. Actually, there's C major there, which has no sharps or flats. If you see the key signature there, there's no sharps or flats. D major has 1 sharp, F sharp. D major, 2 sharps, F sharp, C sharp. A major, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. E major, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp. And these always are put on the staff in the same order. The order never changes about how you actually place those on the staff. If it's 2 sharps, it's always F sharp and C sharp, for example. B major has 5 sharps, F sharp major, 6 sharps, and C sharp major has 7 sharps. Then we're going to the flat keys, and F major has 1 flat, B flat major 2 flats, E flat major 3 flats, A flat major 4 flats, D flat major 5 flats, G flat major 6 flats, and C flat major 7 flats. Underneath each one of these, you'll see that there's a different key signature, and that's the relative minor of the major keys there, which I'm going to discuss with you a little bit later. What you will need to be aware of to help you out, again, is in the textbook, these pages that list the key signatures, which are from, again, page 87 through page 92. All the key signatures are there. All the notes of those keys, all the notes of the scale are there. And you're going to need those. You can use that to help you out instead of having to figure out everything. Assignment 7.1 is kind of long, but it's actually very simple because you can use the book to figure out all of this. And I've got it on this slide. I've got it listed there. The major scales, keys of sharps, 87, page 87, page 88, page 91, and page 92. So as you don't have to have like all of this knowledge in your head. You use the book to help you, and if you want, there's all those different websites that can help you too in the bibliography. Anyway, assignment 7.1 says name the major key and name the tonic note for the following key signatures. Type your answers into the box as you usually do in that. Now, one of the things that you should know, if you read the assignment, read the book assignment, the textbook assignment like you're supposed to, is what the tonic is. Tonic just means the first degree of the scale or the key. The scale and the key are related. If you're in the key of C major, then the scale you're talking about is the C major scale, or the tonic scale of that key. If you're in the key of G major, then it's a G major scale we're talking about. So the tonic note of a G major scale is G, the first degree or the first note of that scale. The tonic note of an A major scale is A. I just want you to be aware of that. So that gives you your tonal center. That's what it's about. Whatever key you're in, it gives you a tonal center. Someplace you go back to home, actually. That's what we call it, going home, so that the music sounds like it needs to go back to home. Anyway, in this assignment 7.1, you're going to see lots of little examples here. This is just part of it, A, B, and C. And all you have to do is to look up this key signature. Here it is, 1 sharp, F sharp. What key is that? If you don't have it in your knowledge bank, look it up in the book. 1 sharp, F sharp is the key of, I'm going to tell you what this one is. It's the key of G major. All you have to do is look on whatever page that is, page 87, and you find the scale there, or the key with 1 sharp in it, and it tells you right there it's a G major. There's a big G there, so that's all you have to know. That's all you have to do on this assignment. So if it's the major key, which is G major, the tonic note is G. So that's all you have to write in on these. Very simple. That's the first part of assignment 7.1. Second part says name the notes of the indicated major scales in ascending order. That just means you're going upward. If it's a C major scale, it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, going upward. So it asks you to, this is number 2 of assignment 7.1, name the notes of an A major scale. You go, Mrs. Chisholm, I just don't understand this. I don't know the notes of an A major scale. Well, maybe I'm having a bad day. Maybe I don't know either. So what I say, okay, I'm going to go back to those pages she told me. I'm going to look on page 87 for major scales. Is it there? 80A, is it flats or sharps? Well, no, there it is right there. There's 3 sharps in that key signature, and it says A. That must be it. And lo and behold, the notes are even listed there for me. I don't even really have to come up with a formula and figure out all the notes. The information is there in the book for every one of these, D flat major, E major, D major. So you need to look those up. Third part of this assignment, identify the key for the following major key examples. This is a little bit different. I'm looking at this example right here. Whoa. Not there. Okay, right here. I'm not trying very well. And I'm taking that as a whole, that whole thing, all 4 measures there. And I'm looking in those 4 measures to see what sharps or flats might be there. This is in, first of all, I looked because I know I could get in trouble and miss some things if I don't look at the clef sign. That's in bass clef. So I know that this is a C sharp. Well, there's a C sharp. There's another C sharp. Well, I don't. Okay, so that's already said C sharp. And there's an F sharp. And there's a G sharp. Then there's another C sharp. So, this example has 3 sharps in it. And I already told you if there's 2 or 3 or 4, it's always going to be the same ones. So it's 3 sharps. I'll go in my little handy dandy book there and look, and I see there's a key signature that has an F sharp and a C sharp and a G sharp. Wow, that's the key of A major. Okay, so this is a little musical example that's in the key of A major, so I put that. Now, on a sidebar, when you indicate names of keys, you need to, I put capital letter for the letter, like if this was G major, I put a capital G, and I write capital M-A-J-O-R, capital M-A-J. You need to let the person know, in this case me, that it is not a G minor scale, or it's not a G minor example. And this says major, but I want you to get in the habit of writing the whole thing. So it's in G major. I looked that up. It wasn't a mystery. It's right there in the book. Okay, number 4, 7.1, name the minor key. Wow. Well, okay, all I have to do is go over to the pages 91 and 92, and I look for key signatures, and the sharps and the flats, and I name this one right here, that's A. I name, there's 4 sharps there. What are they? And then I look on in the book there, and I will figure it out. What is the name of the minor key? And I'm going to write Z minor or whatever it happens to be. Okay? Simple, simple, simple. This is you don't have to know anything to do assignment 7.1. I mean, if you can look in the book and just find these answers, they are there for you. Number 5, name the notes of the indicated minor keys in ascending order. Use the natural form so you don't change anything. So again, I look up there and I find B minor, and I find the names of the notes, and I write them right in there. I type them right in there. Very simple. Number 6, identify the key plus the form for the following minor key example. So I told you this is a minor key. So I look, it's in treble clef. There's an A flat and a B flat and a D flat, and that's an altered tone. It's probably used to be an E flat, but now it's an E natural. It probably got raised up. Okay, so what key can I find a key there, a minor key that has A flat, B flat, D flat, and E flat? Oh, there it is. It's in the book. And it is the raised 7th degree of the scale. So I know it is a harmonic minor. That's the minor form. So you want to put the key name, X minor, X harmonic minor. Okay, and I've already told you I'm not going to use melodic minors. I don't think there's melodic minor in this. I might be lying. I don't think there's any melodic minor in it in this number 6. Okay, number 7. This is a little bit different. What is the relative minor key for C major? All of these are relative minor or relative major. For every major key, there is what we call a relative minor key. And for every minor key, there is a relative major key. They are related because they use the same key signature. The key of C major has no sharps or flats. It begins right here on C and it ends on C. C, D, E, F, G. Okay, the key of A minor begins on A. Oops, that wasn't a C, was it? Sorry, that was actually B I put up there. And ends on A. And it uses no sharps or flats, just like the key of C major. Those are called relative major and minor keys. They use the same key signature, so they are related. This is discussed on page 94 and 95 in the textbook. And I'm looking at that right now. Major and minor keys with different names, the same key signatures are called relative. Now, in order to find the relative minor key of a major key, you need to put down the interval of a minor third. A minor third, which haven't done intervals, but it's 3 half steps, I'm telling you. It's right there in the book there. It says a minor third down 3 degrees of the scale, so 3 half steps. Okay, so let's just use one that doesn't have any sharps or flats for an example here. We're starting out, if I say, we're starting with the key of C major. And I want the relative minor key that goes with C major. There's the C. I go down 1 half step, 2 half steps, 3 half steps, and I land on the A right here. That means that A minor is the relative minor of C major. Now that may sound confusing, but if you just do it a couple of times, it really isn't so much. I'm going to do a couple of these. I'm going from major to find the relative minor. You go down 3 half steps. For example, let's start out here. The examples on the exercise there, it tells you what you're going to use, what you're going to start on. Okay, let's start on G, which would be G major. G major scale. What is the relative minor, or the relative minor key or scale, or whatever you want to say? They're kind of interchangeable in a way. The relative minor of G major. Okay, there's the G. I need to go downward 3 half steps. 1, 2, 3 half steps, E. So the relative minor of G major is E minor. Another one, let's see here. Let's do E major. The relative minor of E major. There's E, 1, 2, 3 half steps downward. Okay, now this one presents a problem of how do I name that note, this note right here? Do I name it as a C sharp or a D flat? Well, we started out on E, and you actually have to go down a third, so you have to go down 3 notes. So you're going to want to name it as a C, not a D, not the note that's next to it. So you want to name it as C sharp. So let's do this one again. We're starting on E, E major, 1, 2, 3 half steps, C sharp minor. And actually the key of E major has 4 sharps in it, so you know it's going to be the sharp key anyway. You know it's not going to be the key of D flat because E major already has 4 sharps, so it's going to be C sharp minor. One more this way. Let's do this one. B flat major. 1 half step, 2 half steps, 3 half steps. B flat major, the relative minor key is G minor. Now you just do it opposite to find the relative major key of a minor key when you're starting off with a minor key. You go up 3 half steps. So let's do this. We're going upward this time, starting with F major. F major, 1 half step, 2 half steps, 3 half steps. So the relative major of F minor is A flat major. We started off with F major. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. I'm confusing you probably. It's F minor. F minor, 3 half steps up, A flat major. So A flat major is the relative major of F minor. Here's starting with C minor. 1 half step, 2 half steps, 3 half steps. That is E flat major. The relative major for C minor is E flat major. One more. Let's do this one. Let's say this is F sharp minor. 1, 2, 3. The relative major for F sharp minor is A major. So there, you just do them vice versa. The relative major and minor. So that is something that's going to be asked you on part number 7 of assignment 7.1. So you need to be able to figure those out. Actually, it tells you in the book. I'm showing you how to do it, but it actually gives those in the book. Okay, 7.2 and 7.3 are done on eMusic theory. And what happens is they're going to ask you the key signatures, basically. And I think 7.2 is major. So if you're in there and you're doing 7.2, you know they're going to be major. So this is the page. This is what it looks like in eMusic Theory. It will give you the key signature, and we know we're looking for major. So you see the key signature of 1 sharp, F sharp. What key is that? And we know we're using major, so I look it up if I don't know that 1 sharp is G major. I click on G major. Now, is it G sharp major? No, so I don't want to click on that. Is it G flat major? No, I don't want to click on that. It's G natural or regular G. So I click on the G, and then I click on the natural, and then I click on major, and it will say you are correct. Then it will ask you to find the relative minor. So if it's G major, and again, I would have my keyboard there and figure it out. I would figure it out before I started clicking on this. If it's G major, then the relative minor is E natural minor. And actually, I think before you even get to minor, it'll say you're correct because they know you're looking for the relative minor. Okay? If you get it, when you get it correct, it will change up here. It will change it to a different key signature, and then you answer major and then the relative minor. And then 7.3 is exactly the opposite. It asks you for the minor key first, and it asks you for the relative major key. Okay, so that takes us through assignments for Lesson 5, Lesson 6, and Lesson 7. Don't let this intimidate you. Almost all of these answers are right in the book. You don't have to memorize a lot of stuff. You just have to be able to look it up. Yes, I want you to know a formula for a major scale of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. I would like for you to know that. But it's not real important because you can look it up what that scale is and the book. So use the book to your advantage. You should be able to get all of these correct on this. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, and I hope this will be helpful for you.